who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Patricia, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the January 15th issue of the East Aurora Advertiser on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Starting with the front page of the Advertiser, Marilla Board to set earlier vote. Voters to decide supervisor's term length sooner, by David Dahl. Town and Marilla residents will not have to wait until November to vote on lengthening the town supervisor's term. Town board members agreed to set a special referendum to change the term from 2 to 4 years the night of Thursday, January 8th. They have not scheduled the referendum, but Supervisor Earl Gingrich Jr. expects to be set for the spring or summer. We need to check with Board of Elections, he said. No one spoke during the public hearing. The board plans to adopt the law in February, then schedule the referendum. Originally, the board planned to set the referendum on Election Day in November. If voters approve the change in a special referendum before November, the four-year term could take effect earlier. Some board members have voiced a preference for the 4-year term to give a new town supervisor more time to learn the position. The duties have increased because of state and federal requirements. Voters defeated the proposal in 1990, 2000, and November 2024. Officials wanted to place it on the ballot again in November 2025, but did not submit the forms by the deadline. Supervisors in the towns of Aurora and Alden serve a 2-year term. Many town supervisors throughout the state have a 4-year term. In another matter, the board authorized the target shooting hours for the Allied Sportsmen of Western New York on Clinton Street. No one spoke during the public hearing. Board members also unanimously approved the following employees and board members for the new year. Joel Kurtzholz as town attorney at $250 per hour. Town Clerk Sharon Forish as Registrar of Vital Records. Karen Craw as Assessor Clerk, Deputy Town Clerk, and Deputy Registrar of Vital Records. Scott Ryder as Code Enforcement Officer and Building Inspector. Joe Nuttall as Assistant Code Enforcement Officer and Building Inspector. Wayne Wolf as Constable. Don Stover as Court Clerk, Lee Dobbins as Dog Control Officer, Hubert Cutter as Historian, Sarah Jankowiak as the Supervisor's Administrative Assistant, Highway Superintendent Ronald Unverdorden Jr. as Superintendent of Parks, Sanitation, Buildings, and Cemetery, Jim Reichert as chairman, and Jake DeLude as vice chairman of the Conservation Advisory Board. DeLude, Shane Houston, and Lee Dobbins to 2-year terms on the Conservation Advisory Board, with Alyssa Strauss, Wendy Schoenwetter, and Gerald Bogdan as alternate members for 2 years. Deb Mammon to a 7-year term on the Planning Board. Schoenwetter as chairwoman, and Paula Schatzel as clerk. Leonard Janiga to a 5-year term, and Jasmine Loggins to a 2-year term as an alternate member on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Janiga as Zoning Board of Appeals chairman, and Schatzel as clerk. Continuing with the front page of the January 15th East Aurora Advertiser. Planning Commission discusses rezone for proposed development, by Sean Cunningham. As the Planning Commission continues to consider applications for a 120-unit housing development proposed by Young Development on Quaker Road, questions remain regarding the proposed rezoning of the property. Currently, there are 2 proposed applications in front of the Commission regarding the property at 260 Quaker Road. The first is a minor subdivision of the property from 15 acres to 2 parcels, a 12-acre parcel and a 3-acre parcel. The second is the rezoning of the property from general manufacturing to general residential, which would allow the 12-building multifamily residential development to be built. The discussion on January 6, which lasted over 2 hours, resulted in the tabling of both applications. According to the village code, the 15-acre parcel is currently zoned for general manufacturing, which includes the operation of light commercial, industrial, manufacturing, and distribution activities within the village that is consistent with its comprehensive plan. The developers are looking to rezone the property to general residential, which, according to the code, would allow for the greatest flexibility in residential development within the village. The development would include a mixture of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments, some that include garages, sold at market rate. We really are quite confident that there is a demand for this type of housing in the village of East Aurora, attorney for the applicant Sean Hopkins said. During the public comment period, village resident and business owner Jerry Thompson Jr. reminded the board of a recent denial of a project for an auto zone to be built on Gray Street. Findings from that denial included the project would alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and the project does not meet the intent of the comprehensive plan. No rezoning was required in that proposed project's application. Town resident and nearby village business owner Samuel Cosmano questioned whether the project's application was considered spot zoning. Later in the meeting, Commission member Jeffrey Hintz weighed the application against the New York State guidelines for spot zoning. According to New York State, spot zoning refers to the rezoning of a parcel of land to a use category different from the surrounding area, usually to benefit a single owner or a single development interest. The size of any given parcel is relevant but not determinative. Illegal spot zoning occurs whenever the change is other than part of a well-considered and comprehensive plan calculated to serve the general welfare of the community. The village's comprehensive plan was adopted in 2004 and reaffirmed in 2019, when a new zoning map was issued for the village. Hintz said he believes that the development benefits a single developer, the rezoning is inconsistent with surrounding development, and that there is no transition zone between the surrounding properties and the proposed property rezone. There was a very concerted effort to retain this area as the industrial park area, Commission member Daniel Castle said. Castle went on to say that he believed that one of the tenets of the comprehensive plan was to provide more diverse types of housing, including starter homes, senior housing, and affordable housing. I don't see where the current proposal provides that. It's all market rate, Castle said. I can't get past the spot zoning, Commission member Stacy Orr said. That was all discussed from 2016 to 2019, reevaluating, reaffirming what our comprehensive plan means to our community. I have a real problem with changing that, and I can't find a reason why we should. Commission members also questioned why the application was considered a minor subdivision and not a major subdivision. As defined by the code, a minor subdivision is any subdivision containing 2 or 3 lots and not requiring the extension of public streets and/or infrastructure. A major subdivision would require the extension of public streets and/or infrastructure. According to information provided by the developer, the Erie County Division of Sewerage Management believes there is a capacity to accommodate the added sewage discharge. We don't anticipate any need for public infrastructure, a representative from the project stated. Commission Chair Randy West asked that the downstream sewer capacity study be completed to continue to verify this. Simeone suggested a review of the applicant's traffic study could help determine whether public infrastructure in the form of traffic signal or public roadway redesign was necessary. The commission has asked the mayor to instruct village engineers to evaluate the traffic study that was provided by the applicant. The traffic study committee or safety committee was also asked to take a look at the study. Pending review and additional information being provided, both applications were unanimously tabled. The Village Planning Commission will meet again at 7 p.m. Tuesday, February 3rd at the Aurora Municipal Center on Oakwood Avenue. Continuing with the front page of the January 15th East Aurora Advertiser. Martina Librock reflects on her years as Aurora Town Clerk by Rick Oler. When you look at a list of the duties required of a town clerk in the state of New York, the job looks daunting, a juggling act of the highest degree of difficulty. The clerk's office, number 1, keeps all official records for the town. Number 2, acts as clerk for the town board, attending meetings, preparing minutes, keeping legislative history, filing official notices, such as those that are in the Advertiser each week, acts as the licensing agent for the state and local licenses, it's fishing, hunting, dogs, marriage, etc. Number 4, serves as the registrar of vital statistics like death notices. Number 5, handles Freedom of Information Law, FOIL requests. And number 6, collects taxes and fees. It would be daunting even if, as clerk, you kept to just those mandated duties. For Martha Librock, who retired as Aurora Town Clerk on December 31st, 2025, after 27 years on the job, those mandated duties were just the beginning. When I asked her to describe what her job entailed, she said, "Well, if you ask the supervisors, the town clerk does everything. We have all the regular duties, but we become the all-purpose go-to source when it comes to things as mundane as problems in the building, to personnel, to helping prepare legislation with attorneys, cooperation between the building department, tax assessor's office, the supervisor's office. We're frequently helping people understand where in the municipal building they need to go. We keep the business of the town running smoothly." Librock started her tenure in 1990 when her husband, former East Aurora police officer, now in the operations department at the Classic Rink, Dave Librock, came home one day and he said, "I heard about 2 job possibilities for you today, one at Tops and one at the town hall." I had been home raising the kids and was ready to get back to work. I couldn't picture myself at Tops, she recalled, so I went and talked to Nancy Underhill, the longtime town clerk at the town hall. Remember Nancy with her little dog that was always with her under her desk and in her lap when she drove the catalog around town? She hired me. I started as a secretary in the zoning department and then went to deputy clerk. Henry Hager was the supervisor, and we were still in the Roycroft Chapel at the corner of South Grove and Main. When Nancy decided to retire, I ran and won. I asked if she thought it made sense that the clerk was an elected position and not the result of an open candidate search. "I like that I'm elected by the people," she said, "and I serve them. If I were appointed by a board or a supervisor, I'd feel like I was working for them, and they are constantly changing with each election. So no, I like being elected by the people." Speaking of supervisors, Librock has seen 8 of them during her time. Hager, Bill Green, Tom Cotton, Terry Yalno, Dwight Krieger, Jolene Jeff, Jim Bach, and now Chuck Snyder. Since the position of supervisor is designed as part-time, although most spend many hours on town business. Librock's constant presence in her office next to the supervisor's office reassured residents when they had an issue. When the Roycroft Inn took over the Roycroft Chapel, the town of Aurora moved its offices to 300 Glebe Avenue, the former Southside Elementary School. As fascinating and historic a building as the chapel was, Librock admits that we never did really have enough room there. We were kind of cramped. Southside gave us plenty of room, but the plan for the town to buy it didn't work out. Moving to Oakwood Avenue in 2020 and having both the village and the town offices in one building makes life a lot easier for residents and for us too. If people have a question that's village related, we used to have to send them to a different location. Now we can pretty much take care of everything right here. I was told by several people before I sat down with Martha that she always went above and beyond her prescribed obligations. Reluctant to beat her own drum, she did admit that she had become a source of information for other town clerks who had questions. From the very beginning, I kept detailed notes of everything I did every day as town clerk. I think it has made me able to help other clerks. And she's been helping the new town clerk, Jean Viger, as she transitions into the job. It's a demanding job, she said. I talked to Jean the other night, and she said she was still at work. I said, for years in January, the first 2 to 3 weeks, I was there an average of 12 to 14 hours a day. There's just so much to do preparing the taxes and conforming to state regulations that make you keep the calendar for your activities. It's a lot. I'm glad I can help her. Perhaps that's why she was named Erie County Town Clerk of the Year in 2014, and why during her career she's been Secretary, Vice President, and President of the Town Clerks of Erie County Association. Not one to cut the cord completely, Librock will start spending a few hours a week in her old office getting Viger and her staff up to date. There's a side to Martha Librock that most of us never saw when we visited to get a fishing license or pay our property taxes. One of her biggest jobs was collecting those taxes, the town tax coming up soon and the school tax later this year. As a resident, as a longtime town official, but also as a compassionate human being, she knew that some folks would have trouble paying their property taxes or even remembering that they were due. Librock kept a Rolodex of the elderly, the infirm, those with the beginnings of memory loss. I knew to call them to make sure they were aware of taxes coming due, of the minimum amount they would pay to avoid penalties, of partial payment options. I could get in touch with a family member, that sort of thing, to let them know what was going on. That's what you can do in a small town, just try to be helpful. Of her years in the clerk's office, she said, I loved them, yeah, and it was more helping people, helping the residents more than anything. There were some years that people would ask me, how much do you make? I'm like, I don't know. You have to look at the town budget because I don't pay attention to it. I loved what I did, but you don't have to make it into a big story. Just write a small story. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the East Aurora Advertiser on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Continuing with the January 15th Advertiser. Under Erie County Sheriff's Report, Fake Currency in Alma. Erie County Sheriff's deputies responded January 6th to a report of sheets of fake currency that were found inside a business on Clinton Street in Alma. Security was notified and advised to call the authorities. Evidence was collected and submitted to the lab, and the case was referred to the Detective Bureau for an ongoing investigation. In other area calls handled by the Erie County Sheriff's deputies out of the Clarence and Alma substation, there are the following. January 1st, a purse was left in a shopping cart of a business on Broadway Street in the village of Alden. The owner of the purse returned to the store, but the purse was missing. Information was gathered and the investigation is still ongoing. January 2nd, a two-vehicle accident occurred on the intersection between Route 400 and Maple Road in Alma, and no injuries were reported. January 3rd, a snowmobile was reported to be broken down in the travel lane on the intersection between Centerline and Hunters Creek Roads in Wales. The snowmobile was not located. A two-vehicle accident occurred on the intersection between East Creek and Strikersville Road in Wales. Both vehicles were towed from the scene, and one person was transported to a local hospital to treat injuries. A resident of Strife Road in Alma reported unwanted threatening messages coming from different phone numbers. The case was referred to the Detective Bureau for further investigation. A vehicle drove off the road on Clinton Street in Alma. The vehicle was towed and a 12-hour hold was placed on it. After an interview and investigation, the driver was arrested for DWI and was processed and released on an appearance ticket. Evidence from the vehicle was submitted to the evidence lab for processing. January 4th, a strong odor of natural gas was reported from a residence on Exchange Street in the village of Alden. No issues were found and everything in the area appeared normal. A carbon monoxide alarm went off at a residence on Clinton Street in Marilla. National Fuel responded to check the building and concluded that everything appeared normal. A vehicle was reported parked on the side of the road near a trail on the intersection between Carpenter and Vermont Hill Roads in Wales. The registered owner was contacted and stated they were hiking the trail with a friend and did not require any assistance. January 5th, no incidents were reported on this date. January 6th, a two-vehicle accident occurred in the parking lot of a business on Broadway Street in the town of Alden. No injuries were reported and minor damage occurred in both vehicles. Information was exchanged between the drivers, who were advised to contact their respective insurance companies. Two snowmobiles had reportedly been sitting unattended on a trail at Porterville Road in Marilla for 2 days. Attempts were made to reach out to the registered owners with no success. January 7th, a delivery person reported a loose dog running in the street on Vermont Hill Road in Holland. Dog control officer was notified and the dog was returned to its proper owner. The window of a vehicle parked on Seneca Street in Alma was broken and a purse was stolen from inside the vehicle while the owner was at a local business. Items were stolen from an unlocked vehicle overnight on South Jersey Street Road in Alma. Items were stolen from an unlocked vehicle overnight on Rice Road in Alma. And items were stolen from an unlocked vehicle overnight on South Jersey Road in Alma. Turning to the Life and Leisure section of the January 15th East Aurora Advertiser. Local communities receive block grants. 13 proposed municipal projects are included in the Erie County Consortium 2026 Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, application. The application, which will be submitted to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development for approval, recommends a total Erie County expenditure of nearly $1.8 million for the projects, an investment which will leverage over $2 million in local funds and in-kind resources. The Village of Alden has been approved for a street improvement project at $150,000. The Village of East Aurora has been approved to receive $103,000 for walkways in Hamlin Park. The town of Alma has over $37,000 approved to upgrade the Alma Senior Center on Bowen Road, and $150,000 has been approved in the town of Holland for water house pump improvements. The Erie County Consortium consists of 34 municipalities, generally located outside of the city of Buffalo and the first-ring suburbs. The selected projects are targeted towards a variety of building and public infrastructure improvements, which primarily benefit low and moderate income residents. The city of Buffalo and the towns of Amherst, Cheektowaga, and Tonawanda receive their own CDBG funding and are not members of the consortium. The projects were recommended for funding by a 14-member selection committee, including 12 supervisors and mayors from consortium communities and 3 members of the Erie County Department of Environment and Planning. The committee reviewed a total of 25 projects seeking $4,294,992 in federal assistance. 3 public hearings have been scheduled to discuss the draft action plan for 2026. Public hearings will be held 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, January 20th at Lackawanna Public Library Community Room, 560 Ridge Road, Lackawanna, 6:30 p.m. Wednesday, January 21st. Hamburg Community Development Office, 6122 South Park Avenue, Hamburg, and 7 p.m. Thursday, January 22nd at the City of Tonawanda Courtroom, 200 Niagara Street, Tonawanda. To participate by phone, call 716-858-2468. Enter meeting number 6409 and attendee access code 3690. Continuing with the Life and Leisure section of the East Aurora Advertiser. Co-op shoppers raise money for Feed More Western New York. The East Aurora Co-op Market recently partnered with Feed More Western New York for a roundup at the Register Initiative and Food Drive. From November 1st through December 31st, 2025, co-op shoppers volunteered to round up their total purchase and donate non-perishable and canned goods, raising $2,991.73. Feed More Western New York offers food and skills training to its Western New York neighbors in need. Through its food bank distribution center and partner hunger relief agencies, as well as its home-delivered meal program, other targeted feeding programs, and free RISE, R-I-S-E, workforce development training, Feed More Western New York works to alleviate hunger and assists community members throughout Cattaraugus, Chautauqua, Erie, and Niagara counties. The East Aurora Co-op Market is a community-owned grocery store in the village of East Aurora, featuring local, organic, gluten-free, and seasonal groceries, produce and craft beer, plus hot and chilled prepared foods. The co-op is entering its 10th year anniversary in June 2026. For more information, visit eastaurora.coop. SPCA to host low-cost feline vaccine clinic. The SPCA, serving Erie County with support from Petco Love, is offering a low-cost feline vaccine clinic on Saturday, February 7th to help make essential veterinary care more accessible for cat owners in the community. The clinic will take place from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the SPCA's Lipsey Veterinary Clinic, located at 300 Harlem Road in West Seneca. Pre-registration is required. A $10 registration fee per cat is due at the time of booking. This fee will be applied to the services selected during the clinic. This fee is non-transferable to other clinic days and non-refundable in the event of a no-show. Appointments can be reserved at yourspca.org/vaccine-microchip-clinics. The clinic will offer a range of affordable options, including complete vaccine packages for kittens and adult cats, as well as individual vaccinations. Cash, credit cards, Venmo, and PayPal will be accepted at the time of service. This event is designed to help families keep their cats healthy, protected, and up to date on core vaccinations in a convenient, affordable way. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the East Aurora Advertiser on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Turning to the Opinions and Ideas section of the January 15th Advertiser. Editorial: Coaches could use a layer of protection. Relations with a long-term coach in the Iroquois Central School District have been a little dicey for the past month. After a couple weeks of research and interviews, the newspaper was prepared to publish a story this week about what has been transpiring, but developments at press time made us reconsider the situation and place the article on hold. We have learned that progress has been made, and a long-term coach who said he was unexpectedly asked to resign after 44 years. He is likely going to be taking a rebranded position this week, working once again with the high school runners, which is what he wants to do with his time after retiring from Iroquois in 2019. Without rehashing details of this case that may soon be water under the bridge, we did learn that even after 4 decades of coaching, there were no protections in place for coaches when a school district decides to move on. High school coaches in New York State are considered at-will employees. Each year, coaches are appointed for a particular sporting season, being fall, winter, or spring, and that appointment expires at the end of the season. They do not work with a contract. They do not belong to a union, and there is not a path to file an appeal for his termination with Section 6 or the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. The New York State Department of Labor says without a contract restricting termination, generally an employer has the right to discharge an employee at any time for any or no reason, providing it is not an act of illegal retaliation or discrimination against race, creed, age, national origin, disability, gender, sexual orientation, or marital status. If the district removes a coach for a reason that is not considered discrimination, that's okay in New York State. An employee also has the right to leave their job at any time without needing to defend or explain that decision. In other states, protections do exist to prevent high school coaches from sudden termination. Connecticut requires that school districts provide annual evaluations to coaches, along with a contract. Long-term coaches who have served in the same position for 3 years must be notified their contracts are not being renewed within 90 days of the end of the season. Coaches may also appeal decisions to the Board of Education. Minnesota requires school boards to provide coaches with a reason in writing if they are not being considered for rehire. Minnesota also grants coaches hearings before the school board of the district they are employed by before termination is official. Well, at-will employees like high school coaches can be terminated at any time. There is a lot of preparation and training that is required by the New York State Department of Education in order to become a coach. Coaches must complete the required coaching courses, hold valid first aid and CPR training, complete child abuse and violence abuse workshops, and have fingerprint clearance. School districts do not pay for this training, and most certifications have to be renewed on a regular basis. And then there is the amount of time a coach takes to prepare and condition that team. Nobody can put a price on that. Well, we are pleased to see that Iroquois has decided to work on a deal with this particular coach. We would like to see more steps in place to secure the employment of all of the other coaches who put in countless hours of time and equity into their job. For all they are doing for the upcoming generation, providing a layer of job security seems minimal. A reader's opinion from the January 15th East Aurora Advertiser. We need to prioritize the environment. Dear editor, being from Western New York, we know the damage that has occurred to our environment over the years by companies that have not had oversight to their production practices and release of waste. Love Canal and more recently Ishwa Creek are examples of why the Environmental Protection Agency was developed. Our environment is again being challenged by the current administration. Since Donald Trump has assumed office, several environmental protections have been stripped away. These are just a few of what damage has been done or is being proposed. Number 1. On the president's first day in office, he signed Executive Order 14154, unleashing the American energy policy to boost fossil fuel production. This policy gives regulatory relief for 2 years to coal and chemical plants, ignoring the progress that was made by the EPA to make Americans safer from exposure to air pollution and chemical exposure. Number 2, the President signed Executive Order 14151, which focuses on ending diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, including environmental justice, terminating associated offices and programs. Number 3, the President has waived environmental laws, including the Endangered Species Act and National Environment Policy Act, to expedite pipelines for oil and gas drilling in previously protected areas. He has signed an executive order to allow drilling in ecologically sensitive lands in Alaska. Number 4, the President declined to attend the recent UN's COP30 summit in Brazil, which included most countries in the world, with the goal to limit fossil fuel emissions, which threaten global warming. The President has also green-lighted massive plans to open billions of acres to offshore drilling oil, including places that have been protected for years off the coast of Florida, Alaska, and California. These are just a sampling of the dangers facing our environment and climate. We urge you to look into these concerns for yourself and decide if this is what you are comfortable with for the future of our country and the planet. And this is signed Laura Mell of East Aurora. Another reader's opinion. Reflecting and learning from the past. Dear editor, in these very, very troubling times for our country, it may be of value to reflect on a quote from Abraham Lincoln's first inaugural address. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic cords of memory stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone all over this broad land will yet swell the course of the Union, when again touched, as surely as they will be, by the better angels of our nature. Signed, Tom Casey, East Aurora. Continuing with the opinions and ideas section of the January 15th East Aurora Advertiser. Saved from the Hellbox by Grant M. Hamilton, the publisher. Goodbye, Post-Gazette. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette has announced it will cease operations in May, leaving the city without a major newspaper. The Post-Gazette and the Pittsburgh Press arrived at our home on a daily basis until our family moved to East Aurora in 1957. Arriving here, the Courier Express and the then Buffalo Evening News were our daily papers. The East Aurora Advertiser, of course, was our community newspaper. I have to admit that the challenges facing journalism and newspapers is harder than any time I can recall. However, it seems there has always been a way to overcome the obstacles, and it will be found. I'm less concerned about saving newspapers than I am about losing journalists and journalism while a new business model is developed. The coming storm in the daily newspaper industry didn't hit me until 1982, about a year after I purchased the Advertiser, when the Courier Express shut its doors. That's when a linotype operator who had lost his job stopped in the office looking for work. He had been earning $14 an hour, probably $10 more an hour than we would pay for typesetting, even if he could adapt to a different technology. I felt bad for him. Union troubles were blamed for the demise of the Courier Express, just as the owners of the Post-Gazette said a labor issue was the reason for its shutdown. Daily newspapers often had union troubles. Because of the nature of the process, there were pressmen's unions, pre-press unions, unions for delivery drivers, and unionized newsrooms. Often, if one went on strike, the other didn't cross the picket line. It was more understandable than as many newspaper companies were very profitable and many were privately held. Today, the profit margin just isn't there, and investment companies with little interest in journalism took advantage of fire sales at newspapers to strip assets that may have been in place at big newspapers. It may have been real estate or remaining goodwill and advertising dollars as they gutted newsrooms. A few true newspaper operations tried to gather titles and find a way that consolidation would work, but they too ended up cutting journalism jobs. For small community newspaper groups like ours, it is no less difficult to make ends meet. People rarely invest in local weeklies with the idea of getting rich. They do so for the good of their communities and for the hopes for a modest return on investment. My observations so far include the fact that many newspapers have tried to move their audience to a new technology when that audience was happy with a traditional newspaper. Some have tried forcing the audience to move by raising the price of the traditional print edition. A combination of higher prices, less content, and new and likely unappreciated technology wasn't the best tactic. What's more likely to work is allowing the traditional audience to remain with the traditional content and delivery method while developing a new audience more inclined to embrace technology, and also explain to that audience that the professional journalistic community news source makes them better informed than unvetted social media posts. As I've noted before, the community weekly newspaper is likely to be part print, part video, and part radio. We will be the breaking news and the long-form news and features source. We will be radio news and audio and video exchange of views. The issue is to find the business model that allows the hyper-local, high-tech, by community news standards combined with power of a mass audience. I have confidence it will be found. So the announced closing of my once hometown newspaper was a bit of a surprise to me. There is something to be learned from such failures as long as looking back doesn't cause one to miss the road ahead. The, quote, PG may soon be history, but I'm anxious to see if there's anyone else waiting in the wings. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the East Aurora Advertiser on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. From the column titled Chew on This by Holly R. Layer, Learning about Supplemental Protein. I recently started lifting weights at night, which immediately got me thinking about casein protein. One of the nuggets that really stuck with me from my food science courses was that casein protein, as opposed to the more popular whey protein, was ideally ingested at night before sleeping. As a dietitian and someone who has exercised in various forms my entire life, I'm pretty comfortable with my general nutritional needs and how supplements can help my nutrition and fitness goals. However, that isn't true of everyone, and I expect with the new year there may be a larger than average number of new gym goers out there. First, let's talk about why protein powder can be beneficial to those trying to lose weight and or build muscle. Ideally, although recent research says timing is a bit more flexible, you should ingest up to about 30 grams of protein within an hour of lifting weights. Obviously, not everyone can schedule their gym session right before a steak dinner, so having a convenient way to get that amount of protein is a win. Most protein powders supply 20 to 30 grams of protein per serving, although plant-based protein powders will likely have less. Also, for those who are trying to build muscle while losing weight, a protein shake can provide a way to get sufficient protein without excess calories. Protein powders tend to use non-nutritive sweeteners to keep their calorie count low, or you can use a plain powder and add your own ingredients for flavor, which is my preference. Just don't make your protein shake taste like a milkshake. Protein powders help your body in various ways. A complete protein provides the correct amino acids, the building blocks of protein, to aid in muscle growth and repair, helps preserve muscle while trying to lose weight, decreases recovery time, and aids in muscle healing and supports a healthy immune system. There are 3 types of protein powder: whey, casein, and plant-based. Both whey and casein are dairy-based. Whey is likely the type of protein powder you've seen in the grocery store. It's easily and quickly digested, making it an ideal choice for any time of day. Whey is the watery part of milk that separates during cheese making, and it contains all the essential amino acids, including leucine, which is especially good for muscle building. Whey protein is a great option for morning smoothies and other good-for-you ingredients like fruits and vegetables, as well as a standalone option in a shaker cup for post-workout. If you really want to get into the weeds as to what type of whey protein to try, there are 3 kinds: concentrate, isolate, and hydrolysate. For most people, the concentrate is sufficient. The second type of dairy-based protein is casein, which is a slower digesting and ideal for taking before bedtime, when we go a longer time without eating. Amino acids are released gradually, which helps prevent muscle breakdown and aids in muscle recovery. Casein also provides calcium, which is important for bone and dental health. There are 2 types: the most common micellar and the faster digesting but less common hydrolysate. If you work out at night, or if you simply want to build more muscle faster, consider having a source of casein protein before bed. The last type of protein is plant-based, which can be made from pea, rice, hemp, or soy. Only soy is considered a complete protein. Plant-based protein powders generally do not supply as much protein as dairy-based powders, but some varieties will contain a mix of plant sources, for example, pea and rice, to offer more amino acids and grams of protein. Because plant-based powders are lactose-free, they can be a good source or good option for those who have a dairy allergy. For those who desire a plant-based protein powder, the best way to choose a variety is to read the nutrition label. Lastly, whey protein powder is a great option. Always prioritize real food first. At meals, aim for 20 to 40 grams of protein from a variety of sources: meat, dairy, eggs, cheese, and plants. Cottage cheese, which is high in casein protein, makes a great bedtime snack. If you're looking to build muscle, ingesting approximately 20 grams of protein post-workout is a great idea. And another reader's opinion from the January 15th East Aurora Advertiser. Why deer population control is imperative. Dear Editor, discussions about deer management in the village and town of East Aurora often focus on the most visible effects: damaged gardens, browsed shrubs, or sympathy for deer as poor things. While those concerns are understandable, they obscure a far more serious issue, one that extends well beyond our community. White-tailed deer overabundance is now recognized as the single greatest threat to forests across the eastern United States, including here in western New York. This is not a matter of aesthetics or inconvenience. It is an ecological problem with long-term consequences. With large predators long gone, fragmented landscapes, mild winters, and limited hunting access, deer densities in many areas far exceed levels at which forests can regenerate. The result is chronic overbrowsing that creates what ecologists call a missing middle. Tree seedlings and saplings are eaten repeatedly before they can grow beyond browse height, leaving forests with mature trees overhead and little or nothing to replace them. In effect, there is no future forest. Deer selectively browse the plants that forests depend on most. Foundational tree species such as the oak, maple, hemlock, and cedar are heavily targeted, as are shrubs and native wildflowers, including trillium, bloodroot, and jack-in-the-pulpit. As these plants decline or disappear, so do the specialized insects that depend on them, followed by birds that require understory habitat for nesting cover and food. In their place, invasive plants that deer avoid, such as Japanese barberry and bush honeysuckle, take hold, further suppressing native regeneration and altering soil chemistry. The cumulative result is a simplified park-like woodland structure, similar to what we see in the village's Hamlin Park. Reduced leaf litter, increased soil compaction, disrupted nutrient cycling, and diminished habitat for amphibians, small mammals, fungi, and other forest-dependent species. These degraded forests also play a diminished role in protecting water quality and moderating climate changes or impacts. Healthy forests slow runoff, stabilize soils, filter pollutants before they reach streams, and store significant amounts of carbon dioxide. When understories are lost and soils are compacted, erosion increases, waters warm and degrades, and forests lose much of their capacity to buffer flooding, drought, and extreme weather. These impacts are not speculative. They are well documented by the U.S. Forest Service, state forest agencies, and national parks throughout the eastern U.S. Long-term studies using fenced enclosures consistently show dramatic recovery of native plants and tree regeneration when deer are excluded. Clear evidence that overabundance, not climate change or disease alone, is the primary driver of forest decline. Some have suggested using contraception as an alternative to population reduction. Fertility control appeals emotionally because it sounds humane and it's non-lethal, but it's not practical solution for free-ranging deer. From both an ecological and practical standpoint, it cannot reduce deer populations fast enough, broadly enough, or affordably enough to protect forests. Such programs require treating a very high percentage of does at great cost with repeated annual dosing, which has no immediate reduction in deer numbers. Even under ideal conditions, contraception acts too slowly to prevent continued forest damage. Wildlife agencies across the country, including New York State, have concluded that contraception cannot control deer populations at the scale or speed needed to protect forests. Responsible deer population control is not an anti-wildlife. It is pro-forest. Reintroduction of large predators, contraception, or fencing off of broad forested areas is not feasible. Reducing deer numbers through carefully controlled culling is a standard land stewardship practice, no different in principle from managing invasive species or practicing sustainable forestry. The goal is balance, not eradication, to bring deer numbers back in line with what our forests can support. Management is not only necessary, it is essential to forest viability. If the town of Aurora and the village of East Aurora value its natural heritage and its place within a larger regional ecosystem, we must frame deer management as the ecological necessity that it is. This is not about protecting landscaping, it is about protecting forests. Signed, Jeffrey K. Hintz, East Aurora. And from the obituaries listed in the January 15th East Aurora Advertiser. Norman Lewis Wolfe, former Wales supervisor, died December 26, 2025. Lucia Helen Baker, former deputy town clerk, died January 10, 2026. Edwin Housley died December 23, 2025. Bruce Blackman died January 3, 2026. Darrell Lee Butch Martin died December 28, 2025. Elaine Harris died December 26, 2025. Her maiden name was Wistran, Wistran. Timothy Penfold died December 26, 2025. Vera Smith died January 9, 2026. Barbara Splain died January 8, 2026. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the January 15th issue of the East Aurora Advertiser. We read from the East Aurora Advertiser every Saturday at 10 a.m. Your reader has been Patricia. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of the Niagara Gazette. At noon, we have the Dunkirk Observer. And at 1 o'clock, we have some of our Northtown Bees, including Amherst, Clarence, Cheektowaga, Lancaster, and Depew. Stay with us for these readings and more throughout the day. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. As of this year, our agency has broadcast more than 300,000 hours of radio readings. Volunteer radio readers read newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading broadcasts from studios at 1199 Harlem Road in suburban Buffalo. Please let others know about Radio Reading. It's your service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,